Now, what is behind the increase on the Easter weekend death toll? Can overloading be blamed for the Bronkhortspruit accident? Why does it seem that drivers disrespect the rules of the road and get away with it? And what will it take to reduce the road carnage? In case you're wondering what time it is, it's certainly question time. Welcome to it and good afternoon. Hello and welcome to the show. I'm your host, Simpio Ngongwana, standing in for Mpotseli. Now, Transport Minister Joe Maswanganyi released the statistics on the Easter Road Fatalities last week. According to that figures, 235 people died on the country's roads between 13th and 17th of April. Now, this is an increase of 51% from the 2016 Easter Road carnage. A day after Minister Maswanganyi's address, a horrific accident occurred between Verena and Bronkhortspruit in Mpumalanga. It claimed the lives of 20 people, including 18 learners. Gauteng Education MEC Panyaza Lesufi says funeral arrangements will only be confirmed once the DNA tests have been concluded. A task team from the Gauteng and Mpumalanga governments has been set up to assist the families of the deceased as well as the affected schools. Meanwhile, boxing trainer Nick Durant died tragically on Friday following an accident involving his motorbike and a vehicle in the Free State. We are live, therefore you can call us and air your views on the following numbers: 089 110 4210 or tweet us your comments. Our Twitter handle is @QuestionTime24. Now, my guest this afternoon is Mr. Leighton Bird, the spokesperson at Automobile Association of South Africa. On the line, we're also joined by Steve Mabona, the Gauteng Education spokesperson. But then, before we continue, let's have a look at this clip by Minister Joe Maswanganyi.
Our preliminary report shows that many people who died on our roads were victims of hit-and-run incidents, jaywalking, or motorists who were driving at speeds that were too high for circumstances. The report illustrates a new pattern in which crashes shifted from the identified historical hotspots into new routes and build-up areas on times that previously did not have a high number of crashes. Very glaringly, most crashes and fatalities happened in residential areas and remote areas, and very interestingly, from 23 hours midnight until 5 o'clock in the morning.
Well, that was the Minister of Transport touching on the main causes of the road accidents. A very good afternoon to you, Mr. Perth. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thanks, Apiri. Good to be with
the
you.
Show.
Thank you very much. Yeah.
All right. What is the cause of the road carnage, really?
Yeah, I mean, it's such a difficult and wide-ranging question. I think the Minister did touch on it on Friday, which was the same day as that horrific accident in Bronkhortspruit. I think what he also mentioned was that it comes down to driver behavior and driver attitude. When a driver overtakes another vehicle on a solid white line, that is driver behavior. When a driver talks on their cell phones and is involved in a crash, that's driver behavior. When passengers in the vehicle are not buckled up properly and that vehicle is involved in a crash, and as we've seen with the statistics now, 50% of all the deaths over Easter were passengers, that's driver behavior. So many of the reasons behind why we have this high rate of crashes and fatalities is driver behavior. And unfortunately, until driver behavior changes, we're going to see the results of as similar as to what we've seen over Easter every year. Easter, December, year on year, the numbers just increasing. Just a quick point. Yeah. You mentioned that it was 235 people. Now, last year, the preliminary figures were 156. When the final figures were announced at the end of April, that number went up to 254. That's a 57% increase. If you were to apply a 57% increase to the 235 for the preliminary figure that we have for this year, that number is going to go up to 370. The worst on date, the worst number to date. It's a horrific figure. There are deaths on our roads every day, and there doesn't seem to be anything to stop it at the moment.
You repeatedly attributed the road carnage to human behavior. Yes. Why then do you think drivers disrespect the rules of the road and apparently get away with it?
Well, I think you've touched on two very important issues there. The first thing is drivers disregard the rules of the road because they think they don't apply to them. They think they can get away with it. I'll speak on my cell phone, nobody's going to catch me. I don't have to wear my seatbelt, it's fine, nobody's going to see me. It's that type of attitude. I just want to overtake this car quickly, it's going really slowly. I know it's a solid white line, there's a car in front of me.
And texting while driving.
And texting while driving, which is a huge problem. And not only texting, I've seen people using their iPads and their laptops while driving. So that's a big problem. The other thing is, I think that there is no fear of the consequences if you do get caught. So you do get caught for speaking on your cell phone, you do get caught for not wearing your seatbelt, and you get fined, but that fine isn't punitive, and if you don't pay it, oh well, you know what, it's fine, nothing really is going to happen to you. So we have the laws, but the laws need to be enforced properly, and there need to be consequences, and the Minister touched on this on Friday as well. There need to be consequences, not only for those people who are disobeying the laws and contravening the laws, but it sends a message to every other motorist that if you contravene the laws, if you disobey the laws, there will be consequences and you will be held to account for that.
Have you engaged the government perhaps about the enforcement of the law?
Look, we engage the government from time to time, and obviously we communicate obviously via our media office, but I think the government is aware of this. I think the government knows that more active and efficient policing is needed. We are concerned, for instance, that traffic officers that stand on and off ramps and dish out tickets for people who have expired license discs is quite frankly never going to solve the carnage on our roads. That's not going to stop people from dying on our roads. We need active policing. We need police officers on the road, traffic officers on the road, checking for reckless and negligent driving, people who are disobeying the laws, and then taking action against those people. We have the resources, they need to be deployed properly.
There's been this ongoing tendency of overloading, particularly in taxis, and which was partly to blame for the horrific accident in Bronkhortspruit.
Sure.
What should be done about this?
It's a very sensitive issue, Simpiwe, because I think the argument can be made that for the parents of those learners, there was a financial element to having more passengers in that vehicle. I don't really want to comment too much on that. I think overloading is a problem. We will see on the 11th of May that there is a new law that comes into force where you're not allowed to carry children on the back of buckies, for instance, and there are regulations around that. Again, it's a question of enforcement. In terms of the overloading of taxis, I think we need to look at where these things are happening, where the hotspots are, and there needs to be action against that. It's a double-edged sword because people who ride on taxis sometimes say, you know what, we will take the extra 2 or 3 passengers because it's going to cost us less, but at the expense of their lives. So traffic officers really do need to look into that. Overloading is a big problem, and it happens at this time of the year, and we see it again at the end of the year festive season. And perhaps that's one of the reasons why we have these huge numbers of fatalities at the end of the year. We have very many more cars on the road, but at the same time, some of those cars have got a lot more passengers. So in the instance that we saw in Bronkhortspruit, which is extremely tragic, when a taxi does collide with a truck head on, it's not a question of 12 or 15 passengers who are dead. Right. We're looking at 20 people who are dead. It's absolutely, it's very, very sad indeed.
All right. Let's now chat to the Gauteng Education MEC spokesperson, Mr. Mabona. Very good afternoon to you, Mr. Mabona. Thank you so much for joining us and welcome to the show.
Good afternoon and to all our viewers, actually.
Indeed. Can you quickly update us on the department's visit to the school, which was, the affected school in Bronkhortspruit?
Well, we can confirm as Department of Education and the Mpumalanga government, actually in Gauteng, that we visited both schools this morning. As you will understand, that the incident occurred in Mpumalanga, and these children are residing in Mpumalanga. So we as Gauteng, we are taking care of them in terms of their schooling. So we are working together. We went at the both schools, for a professional counseling, and just to relay a message officially, because you'll understand that this thing occurred on Friday and it was after school. So we had to go there officially just to indicate on what transpired and how many people survived and where are they, and those that passed on, what is the situation and how we're going to be moving forward in terms of facilitating the funerals. As you will understand that only one person could be identified. The rest, you need intervention of DNA testing, where you will need cooperation from all the families on how we're going to be matching the identity of them with the deceased so that we can fast-track the funeral services. It went very well. Learners were taken through the professional counseling, and the employees as well, teachers, because you'll understand that one deceased is our employee, a general worker who was working at one of the primary schools, and he actually had two of his children in the minibus taxi. So you can understand, and there's one family that lost three children at a go. So it's quite a situation where you really don't want to be in, but we must just be here to make sure that we fast-track the funeral and assist those that are grieving, take them through and make sure that they are well comforted.
All right, Steve, I know it's a bit too early to say, but then is there any word as to what exactly caused the carnage?
Well, look, according to information at our disposal is that there might have been a misjudgment of a speed of a truck by the minibus driver, to say probably when he was about to turn to the right, because he was turning into the right to the community, while the truck was passing, going straight. So that's where the problem, happened, and we were told then the truck, caught the minibus, and immediately, a few seconds after, they've managed to save about 7 of the learners. The minibus exploded, and hence most of them they could not be saved because the fire was too ravaging to can be going into the trying to assist people.
All right. Thank you so much, Steve. On the line, we've got good news from KZN. A very good afternoon to you. Good news?
Yes. Good afternoon, Mister.
Yes, sir. What's in your mind?
My comment is that I fully agree with your guest there, what you say. Only thing I'm shocked about is that the trucks, sometimes they drive very badly, but there's no one care about them. Even the law enforcement, they don't care about the truck. So if you look at if it happened in Gauteng and Mpumalanga, that road is very narrow. You will imagine that what speed they've been using, both of them. You must accuse only one man.
Yeah.
But what speed they've been using in order to do that accident. That's why only I want to say, I don't know why the ministers will be like emergency. Blue lights, they drive like a ambulance each and every time. See, me in a Fridays, I don't like to be in a road because of the people who drive very badly, who got very good cars, but they drive very bad.
All right.
Thank you.
All right, good news. Thank you so much for your time. That was good news, calling us all the way from KZN. And please be aware that we did invite the RTMC, the Road Traffic Management Corporation officials, to come join us on this conversation, but then they just pulled out at the last minute for reasons beyond their control. Now, Leighton, the caller has just said that the narrow roads, or the state of the roads actually, could be a contributing factor to the road carnage, and some of the truck drivers as well are bad drivers, and nothing's being done about them.
Yeah, look, it would be very difficult for me to comment on this very specific issue because I don't know the exact circumstances around, what happened on this road. I mean, I've been looking at the visuals on screen there, and it's absolutely horrendous. I mean, our thoughts and prayers go to the families. So it's very difficult for me to comment on that. I think what I would like to say is that if you are traveling on a road and it's marked at 120 kilometers an hour, we always say that that's not a challenge. You don't have to go to 120 kilometers an hour. Drive to the condition of the road. So if there's mist on the road, or you know that the road is being narrowed, or there's construction up ahead, or you know that it's maybe a hotspot where there have been accidents in the past, it's incumbent upon the driver of that vehicle, whether it's the taxi or whether it's the truck driver, to actually slow down to make sure that they are driving to the conditions of the road.
Sure.
I think what your caller Good News was also referring to, and he was alluding to it in some way, is the competency not only of the truck driver but of the minibus taxi driver. And I think this speaks to a very broad issue of the competency of drivers we have in South Africa. We have very many licensed drivers in the country, but do we have very many competent drivers in the country? And there is a huge difference. And I think that that's part of what the RTMC is looking at in terms of dealing with corruption at the licensed testing centres. We are saying that that needs to be stepped up. A lot more resources need to be thrown at it. But I think that's where we are looking at now. There needs to be more competency with our drivers on South African roads.
All right. We've got Lenny on the line from Gauteng. Very good afternoon to you, Lenny.
Hello, good afternoon.
Good afternoon. What's in your mind, sir?
I just want to make a comment.
Be my guest.
Okay, I've been driving I'm 74 and I've been driving since I was 18 years old. And at a very early age, my dad used to tell me there are a lot of people with driver's licenses, but very few people with driver's sense. So to talk about driver behavior and to talk about adult people, I think you're wasting your time. The solution is facing us, it's staring us in the face. The solution is governing these vehicles. Why does a heavy vehicle truck like this one that caused the accident be allowed to do 80 and even 120, up to 120 kilometers an hour? The fact of this matter is that truck was driving too fast. It was driving so fast that the taxi driver missed the time it would take to get to him. It's all about speed. The only solution is governing these vehicles as part with public vehicles, trucks, buses and taxis. And then later on, if other drivers can't behave them, force them to put speed governors in the vehicles as well. Thank you.
All right. Thank you so much for your call, Henny. Well, Henny's line wasn't particularly the best, but then I'm sure you've got the gist of
he was
of
speaking about speed governors. Now, as of the 1st of December last year, speed governors in all minibus, midibus and buses is mandatory. So it's not any taxi that's on the road at the moment, but any new vehicle that is sold needs to have a governor on it, and that's governed to 100 kilometers an hour. Obviously, that's a very positive step, and it's a good step. This issue of reducing the speed limits comes up every single time that there's a crash. And people say we have to reduce the speed limits from 120 to 100 and we have to bring it down again. There is, in our opinion, a lot more research needs to go into it. One of our concerns regarding that is that if you aren't enforcing the 120 kilometers an hour speed limit now, what's going to be the difference with a 100 kilometer an hour speed limit? If you have a speed limit on a road and it's not being enforced, reducing it is not going to have any impact whatsoever. So it's again a question of enforcement and making sure there are consequences to actions. He also spoke about licensed and competent drivers, which is obviously something that we've spoken about, but it does begin at an early age. Children need to be taught from an early age about road rules. They need to be taught about what car rules are and all of this type of thing. And it is a question of education. One last point, Simpiwe. We found in the last Easter holiday, and it was in the past as well, pedestrians remain the biggest, one of the biggest fatalities of the festive season road crashes. I think this year in Easter it was 24%. Last year the total for the year it was around 40%. Pedestrians are really at risk. They need to move away from the areas that are dark. They need to stop wearing dark clothing and walking on main roads. And so these are some of the things that they need to be educated as well about. So it's not only drivers, it's pedestrians and cyclists and people on motorbikes as well. So it's an entire picture. We have a real problem in our country, Simpiwe, and it needs to be sorted out urgently. It's collective responsibility from all parties.
All right, we've got Msibi from Pongola, from KZN. Very good afternoon to you, Baba Msibi.
How are you, sir?
Fine, how are you, sir? What's on your mind?
I'm good. Listen, I'm driving from Johannesburg to Pongola almost every month. And I want to touch only three things. One, there are no traffic cops on the road. They are there, but they are there for another reason. Collecting money, they don't do their work. The fact. Secondly, you find 16 people on a taxi. The taxi is driving 180. They don't say anything. The taxi is overtaking where it's not necessary to overtake. But they don't say anything. The taxi is like driving on a yellow line. They don't say anything. Our people, they are in the taxi. They don't care of their life. Thirdly, I think we must look on this thing of people who are driving the public people. Those people must be people who are educated. At least if you have matric, at least you can be reasonable. But you take someone from somewhere and he is a taxi driver, he can't reason. I'm sorry to say this, but those people, seriously, they are killing people. People are still going to die.
Yeah.
Number 4, if you go to those institutions that are giving out licenses, seriously, it's a disgrace. Those people, we are bribing them every day. I'm talking about what I know. Even if you cannot see, we can just get a license.
All right, Mr. Msibi, just before I let you go, hang on a second. Just before I let you go, you say that traffic cops are usually visible on the road, but they are there for other reasons. What are those reasons?
Those people, I'm telling you, I was at home. I was at home on Good Friday. I almost gave out almost 800 rand to them.
You gave 800 rand to the cops?
Because we were drinking in the car. I'm sorry to say this.
No, hang on a second. You bribed the cops. You're telling us that you bribed the cops?
Yes, because they demand money. If they're telling you that if you don't have anything, we're arresting you. You want to go home. You will give them money. It's a fact.
But Mr. Msibi, do you realize that you are also complicit because you are committing a crime? Bribery is a massive crime.
But they call it a drink. I'm giving out for a drink. It's what they call it. Those people are working for government. They are doing law enforcement. But if they don't do their work, they are there. The roadblocks. You just pass. There's nothing you can see, like they are busy writing. They don't write anything. Those people are useless on the road. Those people are playing a very crucial role in killing our people because they don't do their work. Number 2, the taxi drivers are killing our people. Those people, if I can regard them as murderers because seriously, if you drive a taxi with 180 and 16 people, old people, fathers and mothers, they just keep quiet because if you raise your voice and say, stop driving like this, they fight, even the passengers, they fight to you here, you are rushing somewhere. The radio is up. You can't even, you cannot even hear the wheel that is punching you. You can't hear nothing. Those people, and you must remember, that man that we are getting if we have accident on the road.
I'm afraid I'm going to have to cut you short. I'm afraid I'm going to have to cut you short. But then thank you so much for your time, Mr. Msibi. And I must say that your behavior, your action is condemned in the strictest of terms, in as much as we condemn the action of the police officers by demanding a bribe from you. You are both complicit in the act. But then thank you so much for your time. Leighton, how are you winning on this?
Yeah, I've been spending the last 2 minutes trying to think of an appropriate response. Look, Simpiwe, Mr. Msibi, I'm afraid to say, but bribery and corruption has 2 elements, the briber and the bribee, and you were the briber. You know, and this is exactly the type of behavior that is causing this problem. If you go out for a drink and you have 1 beer and you're over the limit, then you're over the limit. If a police officer stops you and tells you to take a breathalyzer test and you fail it, then you know, he's doing his job properly. If you bribe him, then you are making sure that that person doesn't do his job properly. It's a very sad call that you've just had, I'll be honest with you. And I think that this is exactly the type of behavior we're talking about. What was very notable about what Mr. Msibi said, he's not taking responsibility. He's putting the blame on the police officer. And that's exactly the problem we have in South Africa. It's not my fault, it's their fault. And that attitude needs to change. Okay, just briefly, in 20 seconds, we haven't got much time. Then there's the issue of the buying of driver's licenses, on the issue of corruption and bribery. The issue of buying driver's licenses and then issuing of fraudulent roadworthy certificates. And I do understand in your statement that you issued a couple of days ago, I do understand that you try engaging the RTMC about this. Yes. Look, very, very bad problem in our country. We have very many people that are buying their driver's licenses. It's not a black and white issue. It cuts across financial means as well. Everybody seems to be doing it. It's a huge problem. The RTMC is investigating it. We are saying they need to investigate it more. They need to throw resources at it. And if you are buying a driver's license, Mr. Masibi, this is for you. Please stop doing that.
Indeed. Mr. Leighton Bird from the AA South Africa, thank you so much for your time.
Thank you very much.
And a big thank you to Mr. Steve Mabona, the spokesperson of the Gauteng Education Department, who spoke to us a little earlier on the line. And that was question time for today. A big thank you to my guests and for you at home for watching. Till next time then, goodbye from Johannesburg.